who was in the battle. She's with us now. Kayleigh McEnany joins our conversation to try and suss this out. Kayleigh,
great to have you.
welcome to our show.
Thank you. What did you think of the announcement, and especially when Bill lays out those numbers like that? The 38% seems so stark.
It is very stark. And when you watch this announcement, you are looking at a president trying to shore up his left-wing base. Notice there was no mention of Ukraine. You could argue that's really the cornerstone of his foreign policy. He's trying to shore up the far left, which is unhappy with some of his actions there. But also, he's running a bet that his opponent will be President Trump. He is counting on his opponent bringing back independence, his opponent bringing back his far left. If he can't energize the base, he's making a calculation that former President Donald Trump can.
So here is Jen Palmieri. She worked comms director. Kind of reflects a little bit on the numbers we just showed to the board. When she talks about it, I think she points out the obvious. Here we go. Call for 4.
You know, the poll numbers are, they're not what you want to go into a re-elect with in normal times.
That is an understatement.
But these are not normal times, right? So this is the electorate is still feeling very uncertain. If there was a Democrat out there who thought they could beat Joe Biden in a primary and thought they could do better than Joe Biden in a general election, they would be running, and they are not.
So you have two, Marianne Williamson, RFK Jr. Apparently, as of today, there will be no primary debate with Joe Biden. They're going to blow right by that.
No, they're going to blow right by it. And the advantage he has there is where you're going to have DeSantis and Trump playing to the far rights of the party. He can pretty much ignore that. Yes, he has to shore up the base, but he's counting on Donald Trump to do that. But he can look forward to bringing back and reviving his numbers currently among the broader public, 39%, near record low approval. He's underwater with women, suburban voters, rural voters, suburban women, even Democrats. So he can look forward to a general election where Republicans are going to have to be admired in appealing to the right flank of the party.
And on the Republican side, there will be a primary, right? Yes. So everybody will be looking at that. And Ron DeSantis, I think he's getting a little irritated because he keeps getting asked when he's going to announce, and he says, not yet, not yet. He was asked again last night. Let's listen here.
So I've said from the election of 2022, when people started asking me, we got a legislative session that we're working on. We got a few more weeks to go with that. We're going to be putting up a lot of wins on the board. And so I'm not going to be making any announcements before that's concluded.
Okay, are you leaning one way or another?
Stay tuned.
You rarely get a little laugh and a smile, right? In this, he's a serious guy. He's got a lot to do. What do you make of his dance, and when do you think he might, if he does indeed actually announce?
I think he will announce. I think it will be by June. And I've talked to people, senior people in the governor's orbit. And I think the appeal they are going to make is we need a fighter, but we need a fighter who can win. And they point to the Wall Street Journal poll, which shows him prevailing over Biden by 3, former President Trump losing. And I also talked to some GOP operatives also familiar with just the state of Florida's thinking. And they said if you look at swing state polls, Nevada, Wisconsin, Michigan, Arizona, Pennsylvania, North Carolina, they cited, you see someone who's prevailing over Biden in a way that Donald Trump is not. So electability is going to be their argument. I don't know how far that will go in a GOP primary. I think the better argument, the subsidiary argument that needs to be made is I'm going to cleave to the right of President Trump on abortion. He won't support federal legislation. On Disney, he's criticized my policy there. I'm going to take on woke corporatism. He can cleave to the right on some issues.
President Trump also went after the state of Florida yesterday.
Right.
Saying it was a terrible place.
Right. Well, speaking for Floridians, as a lifelong Floridian, I can tell you we all think it's a pretty good place.
I think Ohio is pretty good, too. Steve Daines, Republican senator from Montana, runs the NRSC, the National Republican Senatorial Committee. He came out and endorsed Donald Trump last night. Republicans in the Senate put out a video, I think it was about 2 hours ago. I think maybe it was last night, but I saw it 2 hours ago. Runs about a minute long. They have a lot of ammunition to go after Joe Biden in the past 2 years.
Absolutely. I mean, look, this is where it's up to Republicans to rise above the name calling, rise above the low-hanging fruit of attacking one another, and point to a sunny, optimistic, Reagan-like future. Because when you watch the president's video today, it was dark, it was divisive, it brought up some very treacherous times in recent history. And this is where Tim Scott's message, he has a long haul to ever get the nomination, but his message is a winning one. Let's look past the TV partisan bickering, and we need to get back to America's shared foundation, a positive future, an optimistic future, a Reagan-esque future. So we've got to make that argument.
Hey, thanks for coming in.
Yeah, loved having you. Are you going to be on the couch? Outnumbered?
Yes.
Okay.
At noon.
Cool.
Great to have you. Thanks for coming.
Kayleigh.
Thank you.
I'm Steve Doocy.
I'm Brian Kilmeade.
And I'm Ainsley Earhart. And click here to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page to catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis.